There have been all kinds of weapons in the MCU, but what makes the top 7? Well, that's what we're here to find out today. Some of these are so powerful they honestly seem like fan fiction, while others are dark and ancient relics. The Infinity Gauntlet. Out of everything on this list, this is easily one of the most dangerous weapons ever made in the MCU because of what it lets you do. On its own, it's just a fancy glove, but with all the stones, you can very literally play God. Space, time, reality, energy, the soul, the wielder of the gauntlet commands the most fundamental aspects of the multiverse itself. Thanos gave us a pretty good look at its capabilities. He was more than a match for the strongest Avengers. Even teams of the best heroes around could do nothing against him, except for Wanda Maximoff. But she's a walking nuke herself. And we don't need to talk about the Snap, which to this day is the single most busted display of power in all of the MCU. The gauntlet let him wipe out trillions across the universe in an instant. When all 6 stones are brought together, there's really nothing that can compete with them. Even one of them possesses the ability to reshape the universe. I mean, that is what the Dark Elves wanted to do with the Ether. If they had their way, we'd be in an MCU with no stars, suns, or light, just eternal, never-ending darkness. I don't get these guys. How is that anyone's idea of fun? And the other stones aren't any less of a universal red alert. The Power Stone can literally wipe a planet from existence with a single motion. They can cause extinction-level events on their own, so it's only natural that something that lets you use all 6 at once is a threat to existence itself.
I'll do it myself.
Infinity Armor. Thanos and the Gauntlet were bad enough, but Infinity Ultron was so much worse. Yeah, this is the guy who killed the Avengers, wiped out Earth, and split Thanos in half. By the way, this was a Thanos with 5 stones already in the Gauntlet. Once Ultron took his life, he didn't use a gauntlet either. He went the extra mile and made the Infinity Armor. Remember how the whole plan in Endgame was to get the gauntlet off of Thanos? Keep it out of his reach? With Ultron, that's not a problem, because the stones are literally a part of his armor. You can't take them off of him. There isn't a single thing Ultron isn't capable of. Making a legion of Ultron sentries? Destroying Asgard? Busting a planet or 5? That last one's just a Dragon Ball scene. He's even able to perceive something like the Watchers, having become aware of every part of the universe. Just to put this into perspective, no one in the multiverse can perceive the Watchers and get into their territory like this.
I finally found you!
As far as pure power goes, Infinity Ultron is maybe the single most destructive thing we've ever seen. Maybe a Celestial could compete with him, or maybe something like Eternity, you know, cosmic beings at the top of the food chain. But besides that, there's really nothing you could do against this guy, in a straight fight at least. He was eventually defeated by having his body essentially hacked by the digital form of Armin Zola. Don't ask me how you turn someone into a digital form. That one's too much even for me. The 10 Rings. When Wenwu discovered the 10 Rings thousands of years ago, he had no idea what they were. And to this day, nobody knows. But we know what they can do, which is a lot. If you have these bad boys, you don't age, you don't get sick, and you probably aren't losing any fights either. Wenwu himself was a one-man army who built his entire empire and legacy off of the power the 10 Rings granted to him. They do a lot more than simple enhancement, because they pretty much turn you into an anime character. You can shoot beams, send out concussive waves, level entire buildings, or even shield yourself from incoming harm. In terms of versatility, they're up there, even if some of the other stuff on the list has them beat as far as pure damage goes. Plus, the mobility these things give is insane. Even Shang-Chi was a powerhouse when he had them on. The most dangerous thing about them is probably the immortality, though. You can pretty much live forever, although that doesn't make you invincible. A good kick still hurts, but the number of things that can kill you starts going down fast. Honestly, I really hope we get to see more of the 10 Rings and what they're truly capable of in the future. The Darkhold. As far as ancient relics go, this definitely takes the cake.
The Scarlet Witch is not born, she is forged.
It's an ancient book of spells created by the demon Chthon, and every page inside it is basically a shortcut past the normal rules of magic. Whoever reads it gains access to abilities they wouldn't normally be capable of. It even lets you see across the multiverse. We see this pretty clearly with Wanda. The Darkhold gives her the knowledge to move her consciousness into alternate versions of herself across the multiverse, letting her physically exist in other realities while her original body remains behind. That alone turns it into a multiversal level threat, because now someone can interfere with timelines they don't even belong to. Plus, it can even let you dreamwalk into dead versions of yourself. Honestly, the biggest thing about the Darkhold is that a lot of it is unexplored. Chthon carved all kinds of dark magic, sorceries, and spells into the walls of Wundagore, which was all contained in the Darkhold. But we've rarely seen someone show it all off. Sinister Strange, Wanda, and even 616 Strange mostly used it for dreamwalking. The real letdown is that since Wanda destroyed the Darkhold, we'll never really know what kind of power was in there. The Tesseract. This was one of the first superweapons we ever saw, debuting as early as the first Avengers. It first shows up on Earth in ancient times, eventually ending up in the possession of Odin, who stores it in Asgard's vault for safekeeping. During World War II, it was recovered by HYDRA, where Johann Schmidt began experimenting with it as a potential energy source. What HYDRA discovers very quickly is that the Tesseract is producing insane amounts of power, and they wouldn't be HYDRA if they didn't immediately start thinking of ways to use it. Under Schmidt and Arnim Zola, HYDRA starts developing energy weapons that draw directly from the Tesseract's output. These include rifles, pistols, and even larger-scale cannons capable of absolutely reducing you to nothing.
The Führer himself!
These guys wanted weapons of mass destruction in the hands of your average grunt. Entire battalions of soldiers are outfitted with this technology, turning the Tesseract into the backbone of HYDRA's military advancement during the war. They were pretty much betting on a glowy blue alien box to make them into a global superpower. After Schmidt is defeated, the Tesseract is recovered by Howard Stark and eventually handed over to S.H.I.E.L.D. You might think a secret US organization is better than literal Nazis, but they all have the same goal, honestly. Get as much military benefit as possible out of it. That's what Project Pegasus was.
The Tesseract is misbehaving. She's throwing off interference, radiation.
But nobody managed to truly use the Tesseract, or rather, the Space Stone inside of it, to its proper potential. That is, until Loki launched an invasion of Earth. An invasion that was only possible because he used the Tesseract to bring his entire alien army of lizard people into New York City. This was also the first time we saw the kind of danger Infinity Stones possess. The Tesseract lets you instantly travel to pretty much anywhere. As long as you have the place in mind, you can get there in seconds. Loki used it in the smartest possible way too, because its real power isn't in teleporting, but in the number of things it can teleport and how far it can take them. The Chitauri Leviathans. Chitauri themselves are like 4 or 5 feet at best, but Leviathans are absolutely gigantic. They're biomechanical war platforms deployed as part of the invasion force Loki brings to Earth using the Tesseract. They're not ships in the traditional sense, but more like living carriers. They basically hold dozens of Chitauri forces within them. Any one Leviathan can unleash enough grunts to overwhelm a block. Each one is large enough to move through city streets in seconds, all while destroying the streets entirely. You'd think just being a mini Godzilla would be enough, but they're also cybernetically enhanced. You can chalk these guys up to the alien version of modern-day tanks, except these ones fly. Plus, they're not easy to take down for anyone who isn't named Hulk or Thor. Iron Man pretty much gave up on doing it, which is why he immediately led one to Banner. I'm pretty sure the rest of the Avengers didn't have an answer for these either. Plus, cool fact, they even made the headlines. Maybe Clint could have blown them up if he shot enough explosive arrows into one. But the Chitauri had dozens of them. Their armor is durable enough to tank sustained fire from military-grade weapons, which means most conventional responses barely slow them down. Interestingly enough, they do have one weakness. Because of their cybernetic enhancements, they're linked to the Chitauri Command Center. Once Iron Man took that down by literally nuking it, all the Leviathans crashed into the ground. But this is as difficult as taking them down in a fair fight. Tony could only do that because he was carrying a warhead. New York wasn't the last time Leviathans would show up. After the battle, HYDRA took a Leviathan corpse for research because, well, they're HYDRA. That's how they studied the anti-grav devices Leviathans are outfitted with. They were also present in the final fight in Endgame 2. But by then, the Avengers had more than a few ways of shutting them down, including giants of their own. Now, they actually don't have the best track record because they've lost every fight they've been a part of. But personally, I think they're a must-have for any alien army. The Necrosword. Also known as the All-Black, the Necrosword is a living weapon that Gorr acquires after it pretty much calls him towards it. It also calls him towards extreme violence. To be fair, though, that one really deserved it. It's also not really a sword. It can think for itself, speak to others, and it pretty much does whatever it wants. I'm not sure if there's something like a mind or soul inside it, but it's definitely sentient. The All-Black was made for one specific purpose, killing every single god it comes across. To do that, it amps up its user to superhuman levels because Gorr himself was pretty weak. After he begins to use the sword, though, he's able to fight those same gods hand to hand.
Hey, is that the Necrosword?
But its first major strength is that it lets you kill gods, even immortal ones, or ones that can't be damaged by normal weapons. The second is, and I know this is really corny, it lets you use shadows. From the Shadow Realm? Yeah, they actually call it that. The Necrosword allows Gorr to manipulate shadows as a physical resource. He can use them to form weapons, restrain opponents, or summon shadow monsters to fight on his behalf. By embedding the sword into the ground, he's able to pull almost a small army out of the shadows, and they're all completely loyal to him. Gorr uses this ability in really creative ways. Since he can dip in and out of the Shadow Realm, he can also fight very unpredictably. It's almost like a teleport ability if you think about it. But much like most dark artifacts in the MCU, it comes with a high cost. And yes, it's corruption. We all know what dark evil artifacts do by now. The Necrosword actively twists and manipulates the user over time, giving them visions of killing the gods, making them more and more aggressive, violent, and unstable. Plus, it's also got some attachment issues. Your life force gets linked to the blade itself, which means that if the blade gets destroyed, it'll take the current wielder with it. Also, destroying this thing is extremely difficult. First, it's just durable as hell. It took a full force blow from Mighty Thor's Mjolnir to shatter it, but breaking it into pieces doesn't seal the deal. The only reason it got destroyed for good was that Jane trapped the broken pieces in her Mjolnir, completely flattened those pieces. And guess why she had to do that? The sword can heal itself. That's right, even swords have super healing now. Sorry, Logan, you're not special. It's one of the most disturbing weapons in the entire MCU, as well as one of the most lethal. Having a corrupting sword is one thing, but this thing literally induces psychosis. Books that let you possess dead people, rings that make you immortal, and now, self-sustaining swords. As far as variety goes, the MCU probably has some of the most unique weapons in fiction, and that's just the ones we've seen so far. What are your favorite weapons from Marvel? And if your favorite hasn't debuted yet, comment it down below, along with other weapons you'd love to see.